Hi, everyone. Ashley May and Mike Beer here with the Daily Racing Forum. This Saturday out at Santa Anita is the rescheduled Cal Cup Day, which means there's 5 stakes on tap. We're going to look at race number 10, which is the Cal Cup Derby, looking at 3-year-olds here in the spotlight. Mile and a 16th on the main track. And as expected, the same 8 horses have entered this spot, Mike, but a big change here in the post positions, which with a field of 8, I don't know how important it is, maybe unless you have early foot.
Yeah, I didn't feel like the switching up post positions really made that much of a difference in here. This was a pretty interesting race, mostly actually I think because several of these horses, they've just been running in the same races recently, and so you just have to go back and look at maybe the Golden State Juvenile and the King Glorious and sort of decide how you feel about those races first, and then sort of move on.
We'll take a look here at the Timeform U.S. pace projections for the Cal Cup Derby, and you can see a fast pace is expected with speed both on the inside and the outside. And the outside, you have Got Him, Caught Him, who's been forward in 4 of his 5 career starts. And then on the rail, Shea Brennan was able to show a little bit more early foot on the stretch out last time out in the King Glorious. And do note here, the LP flag late pace is attached to the number 4 Accidental Genius, who is an interesting type. It's going to be his first start here, Mike, at Santa Anita, and he'll need the pace as he is a pretty deep closer.
He's going to want that pace projector to be absolutely correct. We'll see if he's good enough. I did feel like the speed came from the 2 outside posts, the 7 and the 8. But Shea Brennan, he wasn't a speed in his first 4 starts, but they used his speed last time. It really worked out for them in the King Glorious.
You mentioned these horses have been squaring off several times now in a row, and one of the races you mentioned was the King Glorious. So we'll kick it off here of a replay of the King Glorious back on December 15th at Los Al. And a lot of these horses were getting a little bit of a test here for distance, and curious to get your thoughts. The top 5 are all back in this spot, and I don't know what to make out of the race. Shea Brennan, who we're kind of showing here, was on the lead throughout, and he did have to battle it out, but I don't know. I don't know if I loved his performance. I thought it was good.
Yeah, I thought he was good in here, too. It was a different running style. It was his first start over a mile, and he took a lot of pressure on the lead, and he held on here. Again, as we were talking about in the open, the question is, how do you feel about the race overall, I guess? He ran fine in here. It's just one of those, and I get it's Los Al. It's a really long stretch. It's a different kind of a race. But, man, that was a pretty ugly stretch run. And it felt like a bunch of horses had a shot at it, and Shea Brennan held on.
Yeah, a lot of tired horses. And you said a lot of horses had a shot. The number 2, I'm a Bad Boy. He was one of them. He was closing pretty good, and he just couldn't get to Shea Brennan. I don't know how you feel about that performance, if it maybe takes away from him, or maybe you have the feeling that maybe second time going long, he could improve.
I feel like it comes down to price with him, because ultimately he ran fine in there. He was, if nothing else, he was wide on the first turn. He was wide on the final turn. He made a big run to this stretch. I thought when I watched the replay back, like he was going to go right by Shea Brennan in deep stretch there. And then he never did get by that horse, which I thought was a little disappointing. He ran fine in there. I like some of his prior races too. Listen, I think he's a really strong contender in here, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a little concerned about the distance for this horse.
A horse that might have distance issues is the 3 Style Cat, who I thought was interesting to see in this field. He's tried 7 Ace. I thought he was, I don't know, okay, but a little dull. He was kind of flat in the final stages, and since then they tried him in a 5 furlong turf sprint. That worked out. He was able to pick up his 2nd lifetime win, and more recently, he just came up a little bit short sprinting on the dirt as a really heavy favorite.
Yeah, I think we feel the same way about this horse. That Golden State Juvenile, it's not a terrible performance, but it's the longest distance he's been so far. I didn't like it. I didn't feel like this horse finished very strongly at all in that race. When he won on turf too back, he got a perfect trip in that race, and that's a 5 furlong race. He lost at 10 cents on the dollar last time. I'm not betting this horse.
The 4 Accidental Genius, he doesn't come out of the King Glorious. He has participated in that Golden State Juvenile, but he's a horse that's going to try Santa Anita for the first time. He's been primarily racing on the fair circuit, and while his figures are a little soft, I do think there's some intrigue around him, especially based on the form in his last 3 going long.
Yeah, he's a little slow on the way in here. And as you mentioned, they kept him on the fair circuit too. So we'll just see if he classes up. He might not, but I think there are things to like about him. He clearly wants the distance. He's supposed to have pace to come running after in this race. He's not a horse who's exiting that King Glorious, which is just a race that I don't like that much. So I gave him extra credit for that. And I like his last 3 races. I like all 3 of them. The win 2 starts back. I don't know how he won that day. A short field. They're walking in front of him. He's all in around the final turn, like he's not going to be able to make up the ground, but he just kept coming, and he closed that race down at the end. I think that that performance is better than the figure makes it look. And I just didn't feel like he had a fair chance last time, sitting super, super wide all the way around the track. I'm not sure why they rode him like that, but they did, and I think it worked against him.
The 5 whiskey, gin, and brandy, this one for Steve Knapp, was 4th last time out in the King Glorious, and that was him stretching out for the first time. But prior to that, he was able to win in front-end fashion on the dirt at Del Mar, but it was sprinting, and I don't know what to make out of his performance. Obviously, I think he improved a little bit last time out, but again, we talk about that race. I don't know how much there is to love in it.
Yeah, it's one of the horses that I think makes it hard to really get behind, the King Glorious. I mean, his horse hadn't Bayard out of the 50s before that race. Then he runs a 74 somehow. And he's another. Listen, he was a little wide on the first turn, but after that, I thought his rider gave him a great trip. He got through on the inside in the stretch. He had a real shot at that thing, it looked like, and he just wasn't good enough.
The 6 R Heisman, he's been closing in his last 2, and I think he's run well, but I don't think he's necessarily met the expectations of the betting public. He's gone off favored in both of those races, and curious to get your thoughts on him. I know you don't love the King Glorious, you don't like the Golden State Juvenile, but do you feel like he's a horse that maybe, going 2 turns at a mile and a 16th on Santa Anita with a fast pace can get the trip?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think he's a major contender in this race just because his overall form is it's maybe the strongest in the entire field. I'm really worried about distance with him. I don't really like his races since they've gotten out beyond 5.5 furlongs with this horse. And I know that he ran okay going 7, 2 starts back, but I just thought he got a really good trip in that race and he had every chance to win and he wasn't good enough. And then I felt similarly about the King Glorious last time. He's always going to his wrong lead in the late stages of these races. Like he just doesn't want to go that far. I'm worried about distance for this horse. And it's not like he's going to be some kind of great price in here.
The 7 Drop 'Em also exits that race at Pleasanton, where technically he crossed the wired first, but he was disqualified. And I think it's an interesting case with him. We talked about Accidental Genius, who was rolling late and finishes 3rd in there. But I think in the case of Drop 'Em, ton of upside. Maybe he got tired last time out. It was his first time going long. It was such a long layoff. We hadn't seen him since July and December. And you have to think maybe he can take a step forward. He did have a pretty good buy or 2 back.
Yeah, among the 2 horses off the fair circuit who are the new faces in here, this is probably even the more interesting one because as you've already mentioned, he's got the fast race early on. He was off the layoff last time. He ran a winning race that day. He just got a little tired. I thought he was rightly disqualified in there, but he still ran pretty well, I thought. And he's going to be forward in here. He's got tons of upside. Mike Smith's going to take over. I thought there was plenty to like.
And then to round out the fields, the 8 Got Him, Caught Him. This is the one that was 5th in the King Glorious, is sort of chasing the pace throughout and surrendered. I'll keep it simple. I think he's a good sprinter. I just don't know about 2 turns based on what we saw.
Yeah, feel the same way about it. He's got a little bit of quality to him. It's all about whether you feel like he's going to get the distance this time. He didn't get it last time, but he was a little bit wider than the winner was.
All right, that's the field of 8 here for the Cal Cup Derby. Top pick time, and I don't think you are going to shock us here. You seem to be a little bit high and kind of the mysterious horses coming out of the fair circuit. Your top 2 are the 4 Accidental Genius and the 7 Drop 'Em.
Yeah, don't really have any use for the King Glorious horses. I want to bet against all of them and use the 2 horses that are the new faces here, the lightly raced horses, and just hope they can improve 4-7.
You brought up a good point. I do go to the 2 I'm a Bad Boy. But price is really key with him, right? If he's too short of a price, I don't necessarily trust him. Both of his wins were at sprints, and his last 2, he's come up a little bit short, but different sorts of races, but still made him my top pick. I think he's one of the more reliable horses in the field. And then I know you don't like him going longer, but I thought the 6 R Heisman, I'm going to give him a shot here. This will probably be the one time that I'll back him. And if he doesn't run well, I'll probably stay off of him for a little bit, especially if he's going around 2 turns. But if the pace is quick, I just wonder if he can close late enough to at least get a piece in here. So 4-7-1-2 for Mike, 2-6-1 for me. It's race number 10 this Saturday at Santa Anita. The Cal Cup Derby. Good luck.